Hello and assalamu alaikum. My name is Zishan Hassan and I'm the trainer and tutor of Audit and Assurance F8. I've been teaching this paper from last more than 10 years now. And well, in this session, what I'm gonna do, I'll uh, make the analysis that why mostly students are failing in this exam, right? As you can see in front of your screen, there is a examiner's report based on March and June 2022 exams, right? So in June, um, examiner issued uh, the passing rates of the various exams. So audit assurance passing rate was 39% only. That's the global passing rate of ACCA students, right? And my students, that means accountancy.com students, pass rate was 80% plus on average. Okay. Anyways, let's move ahead and discuss further. So here it is. This is a general comment about the audit assurance exam. That means section A, objective test question case studies. As we all know, 3 case studies, 5 requirements, 30 marks, and section B, that's all. So we do not need to look at it. Right. Now, section A. Candidates prepare for future sessions are advised to work through the past exams which are available and to carefully review how each of the correct answers were derived. Okay, and further she's saying that Section A questions aim to provide a broad coverage of the syllabus and future candidates should aim to revise all area of the AA syllabus rather than attempting to question spot. Have we noted something or not? Have we noted something or not? Look at this para. From this para, from this para, you can easily understand what examiner meaning. It's she here, the examiner, she is complaining that students are not students are not covering whole of the syllabus. They do not have the proper understanding of the complete syllabus, and they are just doing spot questions. That means they are not doing questions of each and every topic, right? They are not doing enough practice. That's the complaint in section A. So now, from the recent examinations, the trip double A tutor, the audit assurance tutor, trainer, I mean examiner, they reviewed with the aim of giving future candidates an indication of the types of question asked. So, based on the auditing standards, ISAs, relevant financial accounting, important areas of syllabus such as auditor reports, etc., governance code. Therefore, candidates must ensure they have studied this in sufficient depth. So, here it is the one of the example of one case scenario. It is 1st July. You are an audit manager at Dodge and Co, a medium-sized firm with several offices. As part of your role, you are responsible for undertaking procedures relating to the acceptance of new clients. You are currently involved in the acceptance of 4 new clients. Gate Company has invited Dodge and Co to perform a limited assurance review of its financial statements. Dodge and Co does not provide any other services to the company. Okay, the board of directors of Trim Transport Company have set target key performance indicators to assess the company's performance for the year ended 31st March. X5, the board has asked Dodge and Co to perform an assessment of performance to to 31st March X5 and to prepare a report for the board as to whether the KPIs have been achieved. The board will provide access to books and records okay, relating to the KPIs. Dodge and Co does not provide any other services to trim transport company. Okay. Keegan Company, an existing audit client, is considering setting up an internal audit department. The directors are unsure whether to hire staff or to outsource the function. Keegan Co. has approached Dodge and Co. to inquire as to whether it could provide internal audit services. Latte Company, Dodge and Co. has recently accepted a new audit client, Latte Co. The previous auditor, Cat and Co. resigned from the audit in May 2000 X5. Dodge and Co. was appointed on 4 June X5. Latte Co. is the early stage of legal action. Okay, against Cat and Co. for failing to detect a fraud. Now, question number one, as you can see, um, an insurance engagement can provide limited assurance on reasonable assurance. Indicate by clicking the relevant boxes in the table below. Show whether each of the funding following statement is true or limited assurance, reasonable assurance, or both. Well, statement one, an audit is an example of this type of assurance engagement, limited, reasonable, or both. So for statement one, it's reasonable. For statement two, it provides a lower level of insurance. Well, it's limited. Statement three, judgment is required to determine the appropriate procedures required to obtain this level of assurance. Statement three, both. A negative form of conclusion is provided. It's limited. Okay. So what examiner is saying then she's explaining this question examines the candidates understanding two forms of assurance engagement: limited, reasonable assurance. A reasonable assurance provides high but not absolute level of assurance. Section and audit is a key example of this. Limited assurance engagement provide a lower level of assurance than reasonable assurance engagement. So the nature, timing, extent of procedures carried out would be limited compared to those of reasonable assurance engagement. Both require planning of procedures to obtain a level of assurance which is sufficient in the professional judgment. And the conclusion form in any report to reasonable assurance engagement would usually be expressed in a positive form, where a negative form would be typical of a limited assurance engagement. Now, in question two, which two of the following tests would be Dodge and Co carry out as part of the limited assurance review of Bragg Coke financial statements? So the correct answers, as you can see, are the one and A and B. The inquire of management as to large and unusual items within the financial statements, perform analytical procedures to understand the relationship between items within the financial statements. So as you know, limited assurance engagement provide a lower level of assurance, and the conclusions convey whether a matter has come to the practitioner attention to cause the practitioner to believe that subject matter information is materially misstated. Okay. Now, here question three. The IASB framework for assurance engagement requires certain elements to be present in every assurance engagement. Which of the elements required by the framework is not present in respect of the proposed engagement for trim transport company? There, okay, there must be a three-party relationship. Yes, it is correct. Okay, though. So one of the key element of assurance engagement is a three-party, or you can say tri-party relationship. with an intended user, responsible party, and practitioner. The practitioner is the reviewer of the subject matter and who provides assurance in this case, Dodge and Co. So intended users are the shareholders, and subject matter is the financial statements. Okay. Now, next question. Identify by clicking on the relevant boxes in the table below whether each of the statements relating to the possible provision of internal audit services to Keegan Co. by Dodge and Co. is true or false. So, the risk of Dodge and Company assurance management responsibility would be reduced by using a separate team of staff who are not involved in the external audit. Well, it's false. Um, Dodge and Co. should consider whether Kagan Co. has appointed a reasonable official to oversee internal audit activities. It's true. Uh, Materiality of the financial statements amount affected by the internal audit service should be considered when evaluating the significance of any self-review threat. It's true again. Okay. Now, here is the concept revision for you all, that a separate team of staff may reduce any potential self-review threat, but would not reduce the risk of Dodge and Co taking on management responsibility. Therefore, statement of one is false. The ACCA Code of Ethics and Conduct prohibits a firm or network firm from assuming management responsibility for an audit client, and also stated that performing a significant part of the client's internal audit activities increases the possibility that firm or network firm personnel providing internal audit services will assume a management responsibility. So the statement 2 and 3 are true. So when providing an internal audit services to the client, the firm shall be satisfied that the client designates appropriate and competent resource, preferably with senior management to be responsible at times for internal and audit activities, acknowledge responsibilities for designing, implementing, monitoring internal controls. So the factors which are relevant in evaluating the level of such self-review threat includes the materiality of the related financial statements amount, risk of misstatements of the assertions related to those financial statement amount, the degree of reliance that the audit team will place on the work of the internal audit service, including in the course of an external audit. And finally, Cat and Co lawyers argued that the firm failed to detect the fraud in Latte company financial statement due to the inherent limitation in the audit, that it had in fact obtained sufficient and appropriate evidence to enable it to detect material misstatements due to fraud. Which of the following would be an inherent limitation of the audit? Cat and Co was auditing the company for the first time and the business was new to them. Okay. No. Due to tight reporting guidelines, CAT and Co had a limited amount of time to complete the audit. CAT and Co had relied on the truth of information given to them by the company staff. CAT and Co had used audit sampling in performing tests of details. So D is the answer. Now, in this requirement, further information is presented in addition to the scenario. With this type of information is provided, candidates must ensure that they read it carefully before attempting the question. See, examiner saying this, that you guys do not read the information carefully when there is extra information given, and therefore you make the mistakes. Here, you was required to apply your knowledge considering the limitations of external audit. The external audit provides reasonable assurance that financial statements are free from material misstatement due to inherent limitations. In auditor forming an opinion on evidence that is pervasive rather than conclusive. Okay, now let us look at the section B area. So in section B, you had a ESK company question, right? This was a 30-mark question based on the ESK, a manufacturing and wholesaler of the plumbing suppliers. Okay, plumbing suppliers. This is question test candidates knowledge of preconditions for accepting an audit, engagement ratio calculations, audit risk, responses, and substantive procedures for trade receivables. Now, what was the first part A requirement? Describe the preconditions for an audit that Bannock and Co. should have established prior to accepting the audit of ESK company. Okay. It was a straightforward question. What it required, it was totally a knowledge-based question, right, which has been already testing many times. And this sort of question was tested many times, in which you have to explain according to either the preconditions for audit. What are the preconditions of audit? Right, that means only 4 points from your ISA 210, that is agreeing the terms of audit engagement. 4 mark knowledge requirements such as this candidate confirm the preparation of financial statement would be awarded half mark. But if you only say that preparation of financial statement would be management should confirm their preparation of financial statement, you will get half a mark. For further half mark, you have to explain it according to an applicable framework, right? So that's what you need to do. If you only give a point, you will get half a mark. If you explain it, you will get further half a mark. So remember it. Only stating the points won't help you much, right? So that's the one of the mistake that students only state the points and they do not explain it. State the point, explain. State the point, explain it. State the point, explain it. State the point, explain it, and you'll get the full marks. Only stating the points, half a mark. And obviously, that won't help you pass the exam. Next, using the table below, calculating the 4 ratios for both years assist you in planning the audit of ESK company, gross profit margin, inventory holding period, receivables collection period, payables payment period. In this part, mostly students did great. They calculate the ratios. Okay, marks were awarded for the calculation of relevant ratio for each year. That means for each given period over here, as you can see, let me zoom it for you. 2000x4 and 2000x5, you had to calculate the ratios for 2 years. Right now, for if you calculated this year and you didn't calculate it this year, you will get half a mark. To get the full marks for the ratios, you have to calculate the both. Now, in requirement C, using the information provided in the scenario, obviously, and the ratios calculated based on the ratios calculations and the information was provided into the scenario, you had to describe 8 audit risks and explain the audit responses for those risks to each risk in planning the audit of ESK company. So, 1 mark per audit risk and 1 mark per audit response. 2 marks, and in total 8 audit response, 16 marks. That's sort of a question which we get on a regular basis. Now, mostly scenario contains more than the risks required for your answer. For example, you required 8 risks to identify and explain. It contains mostly 9 to 10 to 11 audit risks in it. So how to do well in this? The first step is to identify the factors which will give rise to an audit risk. This information can found in the scenario. As I told you, all of the information in the scenario should be read carefully. From each and every line, you can get the audit risk, right? So, for example, whether there is a new audit client, this is also a risk. This is, this is a detection risk. This is a detection risk, new audit line. So there is a audit team has less understanding of the client. So there is a risk of overlooking the client's information. Now, here is a technique as well. Examiner giving you the technique as well. When you are reading this type of the question, use highlight function, as this provide a visual aid for quickly spotting audit risk. Having look at the whole scenario, highlight relevant points. Candidate should pick their strongest points, rereading them from the scenario, draft their answer as they go along. When you are using only copy and pasting options, well, that's fine to copy paste the audit risk, but only copy pasting the audit risk from the scenario will give you only half a mark, because identification will give you half a mark. Then you have to explain that risk as well. That will give you another half mark, one complete mark. And then in next column, you have to give audit response. If you give it, you will get 1 mark. And in this way, you will get 2 marks. Financial reporting knowledge is very important, because if firm misstated something as per the, for example, they applied IS 30, they applied the wrong treatment of IS 16, IS 37, right? So there is so now you can say that there is a risk that they have misapplied the accounting treatment, and therefore there is a risk that financial statements are materially misstatement due to this. So that's one of the another technique. Okay, now move ahead. Requirement C. Describe audit procedures the auditor should perform to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence in relation to ESG company trade receivables. So 1 mark, even examiner saying that 1 mark is available for each described procedures. Therefore, candidate should aim to produce 6 tests for this requirement. Okay, 6 procedures. Now, what are the mistakes made by the candidates? They interchange test of control and substantive audit procedure. All right, but always, for example, there is, in this question you have to write 6 audit procedures, and in 6 audit procedures, out of 6, if you write one test of control, instead of audit procedure, just substantive audit procedure, examiner will ignore it and will give you a mark. But if you do it more oftenly, more than once, she will deduct your mark over here. Right now, how to write the good audit procedure? Here, first you have to use your verb. For example, review, analyze, obtain, document, uh, observe, non-current asset. Then you have to state why you're doing that. If you only use a verb, for example, review documents, recalculate the ratios, half a mark, nothing. But then you have to give the reason. If you give the reason, you will get a full mark. Now, it is a technique to learn that how to write six, the audit procedures. This is it is a very important technique if you want to pass this exam. If you do not know how to write the well structured audit procedure, you will struggle in this exam, right? Now, describe four matters that the auditor may consider in determining whether deficiency in the internal controls is significant. This is a knowledge requirement which has been tested in previous exams. For example, requirements such as this important that candidate should understand exactly what the question is asking. Uh, Candidates were required to describe matters in determining the deficiency is significant for 4 marks as the requirement verb was described. Candidates should need to ensure they include sufficient detail in their answers. Simply providing few words such as materiality of deficiency is not enough for description. Candidates therefore need to consider whether they have written enough or not. Right. So basically, it had 4 marks. Four relevant small paragraphs would be enough for it. Now, Um, again, next requirement in respect of sales system of whether a waiter company, identify and explain three direct controls on which the auditor may seek to place reliance and describe test of controls. So from the scenario, you had to get the three direct controls on which auditor may seek to place reliance, you know, and then you, as an auditor, here controls which you were assuming as in management they should be there. But then in test of controls, you have to explain that how you will gonna test those controls. Again, important exam technique to describe test of control. First of all, you will tell your action, your work, and then you have to tell why you're gonna do that. Okay. Then we have next question, identify and explain five deficiencies in white taker, a payroll and bank systems and provide control recommendations to address each of these deficiencies. Okay. Again, in explaining the deficiencies, first of all, you have to explain the deficiencies and then you have to explain. First, identify, then explain. If you all will only identify it, you will get half a mark. If you won't explain it and only identify, you will get half a mark. If you identify and explain, you will get full 2 marks. And then you have to give the recommendation that what your recommendation to, you know, your recommendation, your control recommendation to address those deficiencies, that how you're gonna address those deficiencies, how you're gonna improve it. That's what you need to do over here, right? Then we have describe the substances procedures. Same way, you have to do that. See, repetitively, substance procedures, test of controls, substance procedures, and test of controls are repeating in it. So if you do not have the appropriate exam technique to write the procedures or the test of controls, do you think you can pass the exam? So these are the reasons. And again, uh, only knowledge is not appropriate. You need an appropriate exam technique. You need to know the appropriate way to write those procedures, those test of controls. Otherwise, you will struggle in this exam. Otherwise, you will struggle in it. So this is the reason that majority of the students are failing in this exam. I hope this will help you, and we'll see you around soon in the another lesson to help you guys. Till then, take care. Bye bye.